The top story rounding out this week is the story that impacts more Americans' lives than anything the president's been tweeting. It's the story of the demise of this Congress's current plan to repeal Obamacare, and it's important whether the president wants to talk about it or not. Consider that just at this hour, say last week, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell was pledging in public to hold a vote by this week on health care. As you know, that vote hasn't occurred. And after the Congress's own number crunchers found the new replacement bill could deny over 20 million people their current access to health coverage, well, Trump issued a brand new idea about all this today: repeal Obamacare without a replacement. He did it on Twitter, of course, saying if Republican senators are unable to pass what they're working on now, they should immediately repeal and then replace at a later date. Now, that should be the headline we are talking about. As the Washington Post's Greg Sargent has reported, Trump's plan would be tantamount to taking away health insurance for a full 32 million people with no immediate backup or consideration plan whatsoever. Repealing Obamacare without a replacement would be a dramatic departure from what Trump promised voters when they elected him.
And there's going to be a period, if you repeal it and before you replace it, when millions of people could lose.
We're going to do it simultaneously. It'll be just fine. That's what I do. I do a good job. You know, I mean, I know how to do this stuff.
Simultaneously would be keyword number one, and the second idea there is that he knows how to do stuff. Well, stuff in Congress is subject to parliamentary rules. Many people interpret those rules as barring any flat repeal of Obamacare by majority vote, the type of vote that would be available for strictly budgetary changes. Senator Ben Sasse, who also wants to sort of split the bill, agrees you can't even do what the president is now suggesting.
I'm still on board with Leader McConnell's attempt to try to do this as a combination package, repeal and replace at once. But if the leader can't get that accomplished in the next 10 days, then I think we should do standalone repeal, but not effective for a year, and then we should get to work round the clock on a replace plan.
And according to reporting by Axios, the president's sudden policy change got a pretty mediocre reception from Republican aides on the Hill. One saying repeal and replace was, quote, not going to happen this way. Another said the chances of this working were zero. So between yesterday's relatively unpresidential display, according to even many people in his own party, and now on policy, this complete reversal of one of the Trump administration's largest legislative promises, many are wondering, what is the president's capacity to lead on policy or on the broader questions of what kind of conversation we want to have in America? And how can you lead a group when they keep insisting you don't speak for them? Joining me now is Joan Walsh, national affairs correspondent for The Nation and MSNBC analyst, Evan Siegfried, Republican strategist and the author of GOP GPS, and Shannon, Pettypiece, White House correspondent for Bloomberg, and all read in on this story. Joan, though, starting with you, a lot of noise, much of it worth discussing.
Right.
But the big development on health care is that the wizard, the guru, Mitch McConnell, did not reach his self-imposed policy objective this week.
Right. But, I mean, Trump is such a gremlin in this whole thing. He's worse than a gremlin. That's actually a nice word for him. But he's the one who, right before the inauguration, he said it on the campaign trail, Ari, but we really didn't know what he meant. He wasn't serious throughout much of the campaign. But he really made a big push a few weeks before the inauguration to say he was here. You know, people were talking about repeal and delay, and that was the way they were going to fool us. And, you know, there were obstacles to it. It wasn't necessarily going to happen. But he made a big stink about we can't do that. And he was kind of right. It would be politically a nightmare. But he was the one who really pushed them to do it at the same time. He obviously didn't know how complicated that was. That's to put it mildly. But so he's gone from being the one who said, you can't do this, I'm becoming president, no way, to now being the one saying, yeah, well, you better do it if you can't do them both. It's got to be driving Mitch McConnell crazy. He deserves it, but it's just got to be horrible.
And Evan, I wonder whether we're learning more about the politics of healthcare in the Republican Party, because there's a narrative that every single Republican is for repeal no matter what, and that's the end of the story. That doesn't seem to be the case. Listen here, Senator Bill Cassidy holding a town hall today. Protesters there, this is Louisiana, weighing in on all this.
So what you need to do as a Louisianian is go back to Washington, D.C. and stand up for the people who are here and saying, we need our health care.
This is our democracy in action. Thank you all for contributing to that democracy. Thank you.
The saying is, this is what democracy looks like. Is it as simple as all Republicans love repeal?
Well, first of all, I think it's good that Bill Cassidy is going out and actually having a town hall, unlike other Republicans. He should hear back. And it was Senator Cassidy who came out last month and said that whatever bill the Senate puts forward needs to pass the Jimmy Kimmel test, in that it can't be an immoral and uncompassionate bill, which the BCRA absolutely is. I think that Senator Cassidy recognizes that, and he said it doesn't pass that Jimmy Kimmel test. In terms of repeal, we're recognizing a lot privately within the Republican Party. The reality is it's going to be repair. Only 17% of Americans think that the GOP should go it alone on health care. 65% believe that they should forge a bipartisan compromise. And when we're talking about doing a repeal and then no even replacement simultaneously, that's creating the equivalent of a fiscal cliff, but for health care, where, as Greg Sargent said, 32 million people could lose their health care and have nothing. That's immoral, and that's wrong.
Shannon, did Mitch McConnell fail, or is that just what he wants us to think?
Well, I'm old enough now to remember the House health care vote back in March, where everyone thought it was dead in the water. Paul Ryan set an artificial deadline, pulled the bill. The Republicans were so deflated. They went back to their districts. They got shouted at, but they came back and they got it together. And some of them really had to plug their nose and swallow that bill and vote for it, but they came together and they did. So I wouldn't be shocked if I saw the same thing happen in the Senate. Despite all the doom and gloom and negativity, I feel like it's deja vu, and
right.
Mitch McConnell could pull something out in the end.
Right, and you're speaking to the fact that this is politics, and there may be strategic reasons why Republicans want everyone to kind of back down and treat it as dead. Let's do a little roll call work, because I know that's what you do all day. I'm going to put up on the screen, Shannon. You walk us through who you think here is a real no vote or not, because the count is Paul, Cruz, Lee, Heller, Collins, Portman, Capito, and Moran now all no. Who are the real no's from your reporting?
Probably Susan Collins, I would say, is maybe the most in the no column. I could see Ted Cruz getting one over. Rand Paul, he's kind of kind of goes his own way. I don't know what the best way to say about that is. So I could see him sticking to his guns and going no. But I mean, like, I go back to the House bill. I mean, they looked so far apart with the Freedom Caucus and the moderates, and they were able to squeeze out enough votes and give themselves enough cover. So at the end of the day, they were able to get it through. And there were people in the House who voted that I remember seeing the roll call coming in, thinking, I was surprised. I wouldn't have thought that a month ago. So right. Nothing's impossible in Congress, I guess. Right.
And Joan, you look at Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I don't wish to demean the tough job she has. No. It's a hard job to be a spokesman on policy for this president. It's a bit like trying to be a tailor for someone made out of Jell-O. Listen to her like try to make sense of his shifting positions on health care.
The president hasn't changed his thinking at all. I mean, he's campaigned on, talked about since he was elected, repealing and replacing Obamacare. We're still fully committed to pushing through with the Senate at this point, but we're looking at every possible option of repealing and replacing Obamacare.
The president hasn't changed his thinking at all.
Of course he has. Or maybe he hasn't. Maybe he doesn't think. That's the other possibility. Maybe she's right. He doesn't think about this stuff. But, Shannon makes a great point, and I, too, I'm a Democrat. I have fear that she could be right and they could pull this off. But I think a couple things tell us that it's going to be very hard. One is that Donald Trump did actually play a positive role in arm-twisting some of those Republicans in the House.
In the House side.
He absolutely did. He had somewhat more credibility because he loses more every day. And he's not going to be able to do that. And I think that in addition to Susan Collins and Rand Paul, this is a very tough vote for Dean Heller. Some people of Nevada, he's the most vulnerable Republican. He's come out as a solid no. The way he talks about the bill makes it hard to believe that he would backtrack on it. But I think, and they also, finally, they did not want this to happen, this meaning these guys have, and women have to go back into their districts and face angry voters again. This is not what Mitch McConnell wanted. So that's also different from the House bill, when people kind of, the activists gave up and they didn't have to face town halls anymore, and suddenly it was safe. It seemed safe to vote for it.
Well, and Evan, it's Friday night. I don't want to put you on the spot to be too metaphysical, but when the Republican new proposal is repeal now, but it wouldn't kick in now, is that now? Really?
No, it creates uncertainty in the market, and you're going to see premiums skyrocket, and insurance companies try and take advantage of that, and there will be such a fog of war, for lack of a better term, that nobody will be helped by that. Republicans, in the Senate at least, did not want to do health care reform at this point in time. They wanted to do tax reform first, because when you fight, or when Democrats were to fight tax reform, it's a standard line that doesn't really register as much of, oh, you're giving giveaways of taxpayer dollars to your corporate overlords. Whereas when you start doing health care, it's a visceral and combustible thing that people feel. Their own health care, it impacts them directly. So I think there are a lot of Republicans who privately say there is no reason we should be doing this. We should be doing tax reform and repairing Obamacare where it needs to be fixed, especially in Medicaid, which only reimburses 61 cents on the dollar as to Medicare, and that has created a problem in the overall health care system and decreasing quality.
And Shannon, is the Congressional Budget Office the dog that both barked and bit on this fight? Because it seems that people did care about their numbers and what they said were the potential public health damages of this Republican proposal.
The CBO has really been the Achilles heel of this bill. I mean, those numbers, that 22 million, 23 million in the House and the Senate bills, those are a very strong talking point for opponents of this bill. And the Trump administration has tried to discredit the CBO, but they have failed with any specifics about what the CBO bill is missing, what they aren't getting right, or proposing any alternative estimate. So all we have is the CBO to go with, and that paints a very ugly picture that I don't see how Republicans can really get around fully. As the old saying goes, shout out to the CBO. Is that a saying? I may not be.
It is now.
Shannon, Pettypiece, thank you, and Evan for joining us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.